Hi, my name is Laura,
I'm Dawn.
I'm Cassandra,
And I'm Tracy.
and we make up the Ed Leader 21 cohort from Windsor High School, home of the Dukes. I'm the proud principal at the castle, and we are here today to share with you how we use Ed Leader 21's problem of practice model to build teacher capacity the Windsor way. I think we can all agree in an age of race to the top and leaving children behind in mounds of accountability testing that the pendulum of education has been in the last decade more synonymous with driving the wrong way up a one-way highway. 3 years ago, our school division started taking steps to look at education through a lens of deeper learning, lessons, and project-based learning experiences. At first, we felt much like Steve Martin and John Candy in this scene from Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
Hey! Hey!
Hey, what's going on?
Some joker wants to race.
Race? That's ridiculous.
All right, come on, let's go. Let's go.
Put your window down!
You want something?
He's probably drunk.
You're going the wrong way! What? You're going the wrong way!
He says we're going the wrong way.
Oh, he's drunk. How would he know where we're going?
Yeah, how would he know? Thank you. Thanks a lot. Terrific.
Thank you. What a moron.
You're going in the wrong direction!
Once we recognized our vision of creating schools that enabled every child to discover his or her unique talents and gifts, we set out on a mission to enhance and expand our instructional techniques and offerings to ensure that every child is college, career, and life ready. We did this through some focus documents that our county created together. They are one-page documents that help to define the model for initiatives like Profile of a Graduate, our instructional framework, critical thinking, deeper learning lessons, great citizenship, and PLC. And those are just a few of the documents that our county created. Take a look at this context for our work.
Somebody once asked the question, what could school be? We answered, somewhere learning is not confined to rows, offering children the chance to explore and express themselves in new and creative ways. A place where technology thrives and students are put at the cutting edge of innovation. An opportunity to discover new passions, gifts, and talents.
The next context needed to understand our work this year is that of the team that we represent. Our student body is made up of approximately 520 students, and our faculty is made up of approximately 64 members. At WHS, we are truly a family. Dysfunctional at times, but still a family. We knew when addressing a problem of practice that we needed to capitalize on a strength that we already had. And so we decided to capitalize on the strength of our already supportive culture. To explain our point, check out this blog that our superintendent did last year of our school climate.
If you go around and ask teachers, you will hear the phrase the Windsor way a lot. And you may hear from some of the students, but what they're talking about is the bond between the teachers, the students, the parents, and leaders of the community. We're all working in this effort together.
We knew that we had some problems of practice that we needed to encounter, and we decided that PLCs would be the perfect vehicle in which to discuss those adaptive problems.
Our faculty focused on technical concerns rather than digging deep into adaptive issues of learning. This mentality left us meeting most state standards overall, but we fell below expected levels of growth in subgroups. More importantly, it reinforced our instructional culture of maintaining the status quo. In order to level up our instruction,
We knew we needed a new vehicle, and we knew that to lead our faculty in the right direction, our approach would have to be relationship-based. Previous PLCs were not successful, which gave many in the faculty a bad impression of PLCs. We rebranded the PLCs as Duke Masterminds, a group whose focus isn't on instructional buzzwords, but a group of individuals who provide emotional support while also helping one another with practical, strategic thinking. Through Masterminds, we created a core belief that we need to be the educator that fixes another educator's crown without telling the world it was crooked. So, in order to move forward, we established these landmarks to determine the success of our plan.
We decided to present our summary, solutions tested, and reflections in the form of a project card. Cassie's holding up what the card looked like in the front, and all of our artifacts are on the back of our events that we did with our teachers. Our central question was, how do we grow our teachers' capacity to collaborate on adaptive, not technical issues and take ownership in each other's professional growth, resulting in student success? We launched our PLCs by creating an inviting space for meetings and fellowship. During PD days, we had our staff participate in team-building activities such as a scavenger hunt and a Socratic seminar to promote the philosophy that we are all on this journey together. We have twice monthly meetings that are regarded as sacred time. Meetings began with celebrations, and then they moved towards an instructional focus. Teachers are given voice and choice in topics such as effective strategies and lesson plan tunings, all guided by implementation within our instructional framework. After feedback from our expanded team, we adjusted our PLC times and decided to implement learning walks. These walks to learn are where teachers could see best practices in action and gauge the transfer of learning from the PLC to the classroom. Our team reflection and aha moments have been: participant voice and choice help solidify the value and purpose of the Duke Masterminds. Learning walks encourage teachers to level up their own instruction. We conducted a survey of the effectiveness of the Duke Masterminds, and we truly feel success in that our teachers have moved towards a growth mindset which impacts instruction in a positive way. They all understand the purpose of the Masterminds, and 70% or so of them see the value of the Duke Masterminds. Next, you will hear directly from our teachers on the most valuable aspect of the Duke Mastermind so far.
I think just having an opportunity to collaborate with your peers on a consistent basis. A lot of people bring new ideas, new strategies to the platform, and if you have something going on that week, it's a perfect opportunity to be like, hey, where could I do for this? So just having that opportunity to collaborate, I think, is the most beneficial.
Getting to mentor other teachers and to be mentored by other teachers, shared experiences and shared growth.
For me, getting a chance to interact with other teachers has been great. It's something I don't do on a normal basis. I feel like a regular school day. It's all about the students. We don't tend to see each other except in the halls. But getting a structured opportunity to meet and discuss with other teachers, and then particularly the past few sessions we've done learning walks where we've been able to go into other teachers' classrooms for kind of snapshot observations. Those have been incredibly helpful and really eye-opening, because I've been teaching here 15 years, and I've been in the past 15 years I've been into maybe 2 teachers' classrooms for observations. But since we started doing learning walks, I've been in 8 different classrooms and gotten a chance to see my colleagues in the moment, doing actual instruction. It's been really nice.
Okay, so next steps for us, our leadership team. Our leadership team is going to, which are representatives from each department, are going to involve themselves in the work that we did this year with problem of practice. We're going to take a lot of the resources in the Leadership Academy mindset and go back and have them come up with their own problem of practice within our guidelines of our county focus documents for them to select one have them select one problem of practice to focus on within their department that to make them have ownership and a voice in that strategic plan going forward. With the county vision in mind, teachers are also going to complete a professional growth reflection log that we picked up at our last Ed Leader 21 conference, where they do personalized reflection logs, again, within the mindset and within the frame of our county focus document so that it's all aligned with that same vision, but having a more personalized reflection log to guide and document their growth in the classroom, and that'll also serve for a basis of conversations within our Duke Masterminds to facilitate those conversations. And then also for the Ed Leader Cohort 21 team is we are going to make sure that we're developing a schedule and a focus for Duke Masterminds for next year. With all of that said, we're very proud of the work and the movement that we've made this year with building teacher capacity and setting up structures for that. But we do have a couple of questions for our panelists. In a building of career teachers, how do we grow teacher leaders? And also, how do we empower these teacher leaders within our building? We are very unique, and then the majority of the teachers within our building, they plan on being teachers for their career, which we love. We need the great teachers to stay in the classroom. But they really lack that drive to also grow themselves as leaders, and don't really, like Mrs. Gaffa said in the West Side presentation, see themselves as a person who can be that change agent. So we just want strategies or ideas or tools for what you would suggest in terms of how to get them to see that side of being part of an educator. So, thank you.
Impressive work in terms of developing faculty capacity, but my question is, what evidence do you see so far that this is translating into better results for students?
Yes, so just like another team that spoke yesterday, we are in the midst of starting our spring testing. And of course, we have graduation in the second week of June. And so that is for the high school level, it also shows up in our graduation rate. We started the learning walks because after first semester of doing the masterminds, that was our question, is how much of this is actually transferring? And we can come to this beautiful space and talk about all these wonderful instructional practices and these guiding documents, but how is it transferring to your classroom, and then what's the output of that? And so that's really our next step, is now that we've started the learning walks, we've had great conversations with our teachers where they've gone into classrooms and said, like that essential question that we talk about in the instructional framework, I'm watching other teachers not doing it too, and I'm realizing what an effect that has in their classrooms. So I'm going to go back and do that now. And then being able to have those conversations with kids when we go in and do the learning walks, we always say, what are you doing? What are you learning? And what's the relevancy of it? And so for the kids, that being able to say, well, I'm learning this because X, Y, and Z, and especially when it goes beyond the answer of, well, it's on the SOL.
This is really great work. I love seeing the instructional support documents and being able to really wrap my mind around when you're talking about PLCs to really see the tools that you have for teachers. But here's a question. As I was looking through the documents and I was listening to the work of the PLC, it sounded like there was, at least in here's some of the supporting documents, we're talking about lessons. Talk to me about units.
You mean in terms of them developing units
Yes.
of study?
Yes.
Okay, so well, for the project-based learning units, that's one of the things that all of our teachers go through. They have to have at least one project-based learning unit throughout a year, and we take that through a lesson or a PBL unit tuning. And so we have guiding documents and protocols for that to ensure that it aligns with our essential expectations for that. We also have the expectation of curriculum mapping at the beginning of the year. We are also unique in that since we're such a small school, the majority of our teachers are singletons. They're the only one teaching a certain course. And so it makes it really unique in that that's been, I think, one of the most difficult challenges in building masterminds is that they are all cross-curricular because we don't have the option of having 2 ninth grade English teachers.
And okay, thank you for saying that because that really clarifies a point. Because my next question was going to be, how do you ensure quality, fidelity, consistency, and intensity of implementation if you're focused on a daily lesson but not a unit of study? Can you just real quick? I know we're running out of time. Can you talk to me about the role of evaluating student work in the PLCs?
Yes, so I would say most of our work in that area comes from the PBL unit. So right now we're looking more at those bigger units because that was kind of a common place for them to start with that. Like they all had the same understanding of what a PBL unit should be. We went through a lot of training with High Tech High. We actually visited there and then they came out and visited us and did trainings for all of our teachers. And so through that experience, it was a good place to start with people who weren't teaching the same subjects and having the same content knowledge to have a understanding of looking at student work and being able to measure that. And so that's really, I think, a next step for us going into next year of more of looking at student work when it comes to our instructional framework and the expectations. And like, for example, one of the having the content cohorts or the departments looking at a problem of practice for our English department, which Cassie represents for us, they're going to look at vertical alignment across their department and also like rubrics for common writing rubrics so that there's a place that they can start with that.
I'm going to lead off the feedback portion, and I'm going to try to look at your second question, how do we empower these teacher leaders? And I actually made reference to this yesterday. Tony Wagner and his colleagues at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard had written the book Change Leadership, and I heard a lot of adaptive technical references in your presentation, so I know you're probably well aware of the continua that I'm just going to share real quickly. There's 3 continua to create momentum. And one is moving from reaction to purpose and focus, because I think we all find ourselves at school in a reactive mode all the time based on the fact that things are so unpredictable. But trying to get from reaction to purpose and focus, isolation to collaboration, and the one that I think will most apply to your question is moving from compliance to engagement to empowerment. The continua that Tony talks about is from compliance to engagement. I just saw in Twitter, like last week, Ken Kay saying that we need to go from compliance to engagement to empowerment. And so that's where I've kind of picked up those 3 benchmarks. And when you have an opportunity for your leadership team or others in the school that are responsible for helping these teachers actually maybe start to create descriptors for what compliance looks like, engagement, and empowerment, then there are ways then that you can try to strategize about how to move people along that continuum and how you'll know whether or not you're making progress.
Tremendous amount of great work here. Lots of commendations. In response to your question about growing teachers, just a quick model of a suggestion for your toolbox. Our systems of evaluating teachers don't really help most teachers to grow. We need something that's parallel and different. We can't give those up, they're law. But here's just another model to even think about, look at, and try voluntarily initially. Every teacher at the beginning of every year sits down and says, here are a couple of things I want to get better at this year. So that's question 1, what do you want to get better at this year? Question 2, what evidence did you use to determine that focus, right? Question 3 is, what evidence will you use to know if you're making progress? Question 4 is, what help do you need? And then break that down from peers, from administration, whomever, right? So it's a simple protocol, 4 questions. At the end of every year, you sit down and kind of go through the questions, say, well, am I better at this? What's the evidence? And then at the beginning of the next year, you reference last year's paper, say, what do I want to get better at this year? So the idea is a continuous self-improvement model, but one that's based on evidence. And I use the term evidence rather than data. We tend to be data-driven. You've got a lot of great data here. But as Mike might mention in a moment, we also need to use evidence, which is more qualitative. It's great to have student surveys, but student focus groups often tell you more, as one example. You've already learned that with some of your work. Faculty surveys are interesting, but interviews and focus groups, again, kind of round that out and deepen your learning. Just a couple of quick ideas.
There was something really interesting. I really want to give you guys commendation on the support tools that you've provided for your teachers. One of the things that you provide in the support documents for us, but that you didn't mention, I understand you have severe time constraints, is the idea of the expo, which I think is such a profound way to bring this deeper learning and exhibit and bring the 4 C's to life and continue to engage your parents and your teachers and your community about what the expectations are. So I want to commend you on the idea of the expo, and although you didn't have a chance to really talk about it. I keep coming back to a comment that you made about the professional development in PBL and the expectation for PBL, and separating that from the construct of unit design and unit design scaffolding throughout the year, culminating in a cornerstone task that would be that deeper learning transfer that would provide the artifacts for the expo. And once again, we had very limited time, and I'm sure there's so much more you guys are doing, and so I may just be completely off target here. But if we think about looking at the whole year and the deep conceptual underpinnings of the standards for that year and how that correlates to a deeper learning performance task, a cornerstone task that students work on at the end of the year, perhaps after the state testing is done, when we're kind of in this kind of limbo time, that students are now engaged in this PBL, really it's what it is, but it's really focused on a culmination experience that allows students the opportunity to demonstrate transfer of knowledge to the deep conceptual foundation of that curriculum for that year, which allows teachers the opportunity to think about those standards holistically throughout the year and allows them the ability to make some judgments. Less on this, more on this. This is a support standard. This is a power standard. And you guys may already have that in place. I don't know. But just as I was looking through the documents and hearing how we grow as how we grow capacity of our teachers, thinking about that student evidence at the end of the year. What can they now do in May that they simply could not do at the beginning of the year? And that's just foundational around conceptual, deep understanding in that content. The discipline of mind, the habit of mind of that discipline.